Wherever we go, we about to bring on the positive vibe. Wherever we go, we are gonna do what makes us feel right.
Hello, 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 and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Soul Purpose Show.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm your host, Keith, and this is my lovely co-host.
Hi, I'm Monica.
You look so pretty today.
Thanks so much. I'm tired, but thank you.
Well, listen, folks, thank you for joining us. You are here every Saturday. You hear us on In Touch News Radio, internet radio, heard all over the world, and we stream on Facebook Live. We also stream. We have our YouTube channel up and running now, so you can absorb and consume the Soul Purpose Show in a number of different venues. But if you've been keeping up with our show, you know that for the month of October, we have dedicated for something that is near and dear to our hearts, because we went to, Monica and I went to Florida A&M University. So we believe in HBCUs and the HBCU experience, but because of the crisis and because of COVID and homecomings being canceled, we decided to kind of take things into our own hands, and we started this HC 2020 challenge. What's that all about?
So have you all watched previous shows? The HC 2020 challenge initially we were trying to assist HBCUs in this no homecoming season, which I'm still devastated about, to encourage alumni to give money back to their institutions. But we did the pivot like HBCU grads do. We pivoted and we decided that we would highlight some phenomenal and achieving HBCU graduates. And so I sent the call out and said, if you are an HBCU grad and you're proud of your HBCU and you want to be a guest on our show, then let us know, and then you can appear and shout out your school, and hopefully alumni of your institutions will watch and be encouraged to give back to their universities.
And we hope so, because what we know for sure is when homecoming happens every year, we save up all year long, right? And we here's how this works, right? So we look at hotel costs for the normal weekends versus homecoming weekend. We see the hotels charge 3 times as much, and we get really, really angry and upset. Well, we still save that money though.
We do, and I don't know if that's just. We can ask the other HBCU grads, because we have FAMU grads on here, but we have some graduates of other institutions. I don't know if that's just Tallahassee that goes from like $100 a night to like $500 for the Hampton Inn, or if that's all HBCUs. We can ask a question, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But here's the point: we do save that money up. We save that money up for months and months in advance. And you also, if you're in my home, then my wife saves her money up so that she can have an outfit for breakfast. So there's a breakfast outfit, and then there's a midday outfit for going out on the yard outfit, and then there's an evening outfit for getting ready to go to the spot later on, which is not the same as the game outfit, because there's a specific game outfit.
Because you sweat at the game.
You sweat at the game, right? So then you leave the game and you go and you get cued again. So there's an after the game outfit.
Correct. Yeah. So that's technically not true. I don't have a breakfast outfit. My breakfast outfit is my convocation outfit, which is my day party outfit generally. And then, then you have a night outfit. Who goes out in the same clothes you've been in all day? You smelling like day around people at night. That makes no sense.
So the point is, You have saved your money. And that money, for the most part, some of it goes to the institutions that we go back and support. So a big part of this HC 2020 challenge is, folks, y'all saved up, a couple dollars this year. Make sure that you give back, and you're encouraging your fellow alum to give back to your historically Black college and university.
Yeah, and so while my husband is a hater and hates my fashion sense, that's actually a great lead in, because as he talked about giving back to the institutions. And last week we had Tiffany Williams, who is the CEO of TJ Marie Consulting and the founder of the Gively app. And we were talking about Black philanthropy and HBCUs and alumni giving. It's a really, really good conversation. So if you missed last week's show, I highly encourage you, whether you're an HBCU grad or not, to go back and watch that show. She gave us some really good nuggets of wisdom.
She really did. And so what we want to do is we want to continue to highlight the accomplishments of HBCU alumni. And so we've got a fantastic, phenomenal panel of Black professionals with us who have joined us today from all parts of the country. From the A, to
Alabama. We got the South covered.
At least we got the South covered today. So, West Coast people, they're not up yet. So
we'll
invite them.
So, hey, everybody, y'all can take yourselves off mute. How's everybody doing this morning?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good. So we're going to go ahead and if y'all can introduce yourselves. We're going to start with Tanya. Good morning, Tanya.
Good morning. Hello. My name is Tanya Nicole, and I'm so excited to be here. I am a proud graduate of Spelman College, class of 2002. And on a personal note, I am a speaker and coach right now. I call myself the Universal Mama Bear, and I am a mother of 3. I am the CEO of Bridge Every Gap Institute. And what I do is pretty much I help parents and leaders and influencers of youth to stop breaking down and start breaking through to stronger relationships, greater relevance, and next level results. My tagline is I empower youth by empowering you. And I am so excited because something I am really passionate about is HBCU. So thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. Welcome. DeMarc.
Oh man, I'm a little upset I had to go behind Tanya, but so I'm over here inspired right now. I'm like, when is her personal segment? Anyway,
we gonna come back.
I know, right? No, I'm DeMarc Liggins, obviously proud graduate, Alabama State University. I came out of state in 2001. I'm currently working as the Chief of Staff and CFO for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference at the national office. As well as, a couple of personal endeavors, co-founded of Ma 54, which is an initiative launched to honor the legacy of C.T. Vivian and John Lewis. And I feel like I should have had my elevator speech ready, but I'm not dinner that dude. But now I'm super excited to be here, super excited to meet all the panelists. Thank you guys again for what you guys do with your leadership. Even in your intro, I just want to say before I forget, you just chastised me a little bit because though I've already made my plans for next year's classes because they pushed it all into the springtime, I'm like, that's a good point. We do save and we do need to get back. So thank you for that. That purposeful, I can just transfer that to the school and keep it moving. So I appreciate that.
There you go. Colette.
Good morning, everyone. I am Colette Glover Hanna. I am a native of Tampa Bay area and a 1987 graduate of Florida A&M University in the School of Journalism, Public Relations. I am the founder and CEO of Hannah Shoebox, which is an online e-commerce business that sells age-appropriate shoes for girls who happen to have big feet. So little girls with big feet, making sure that they have the shoes they want and the sizes that they need. Again, I'm so happy to be here. My favorite subject to talk about is the Florida A&M University. And again, just happy to be amongst all of you HBCU graduates. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you, Colette. And Colette also happens to be my line sister. So I'm actually very excited that she's on.
Yes.
And Kristen?
Good morning. I am Kristen Denise Hemingway. I am a proud graduate of Florida A&M University. I have a unique FAMU story, I'll say that. So I went in 1999 and graduated in 2019. But there's so much beauty and love and joy in that. So that is me. I am currently, I run an after school program and community center as my full-time gig. I'm also a full-time graduate student at another school that's not an HBCU, so we're not gonna talk about them. But I love them, thank you, because they're paying for my education right now. Love you a lot. I'm also an author, a speaker, a coach. I also work with youth. And I've been doing life coaching with students. They're just a little bit easier to work with than adults. I still coach adults, but kids are probably my favorite thing across the board. My desire is to help them learn the lessons I learned a little later, a lot earlier, so that they can be much further along by the time that they get to where I am today.
Well, thank you all. I told you, listen, this is a powerful bomb panel, and we have some other panels coming later in the month rather. So this is a really awesome way to start it off. So we're just going to jump right into these.
Let's do
questions.
Absolutely. And so my curiosity is piqued. I mean, I went to FAMU obviously, so I know a little bit about what led to my decision to go to FAMU. But I am curious, especially let's start with Tanya. What was your route to get to Spelman, and then what did you hear about Spelman before you got there, and then after you got there, like to find out like what was kind of the aha for you?
So, like many, Spelman was brought to me right in front of my home with a different world. And so, right. So a lot of people grew up on that. But for me, I have an older brother, and when he was looking at colleges of which to go to, he visited Morehouse. And I remember going there and I was like, oh, this is where I'm going to school, not Morehouse, but Spelman. And a different world really just kind of laid out that perspective for me. My brother ended up going to Tuskegee and loving it. But for me, that was my introduction to Spelman. And I got my cousin who graduated the same year as me on board, and we both went to Spelman. And then we convinced our twin cousins and cousins thereafter, like, you're going to Spelman. And so that was really what just brought me there. And it wasn't anything out of, a logical thought out process, but for me, a different world was what I wanted my college experience to be. Even though it was a TV show, it worked out.
Awesome.
Oh, wow.
DeMarc, same question.
I got to Alabama State in a really strange way. I actually went to school my first year at Memphis State because I was in ROTC, and they pick you tell them the schools, and they were like, this is the school you're going to. And I went to school. I always say I think I've had the nation's biggest case of freshmanitis, right? My dad said, you have lost your mind, boy. I don't know what you're thinking. But what you're not going to do is lose a scholarship and stay up here. And so, he said, you got to come back to Montgomery. And, being from Montgomery, I had a choice between Tuskegee and Alabama State. But I had always liked Bama State. It's just my money had went to Memphis. And so, I kind of got to ASU, and it's been one of the best, probably accidents, I guess, that ever happened to me, because even though I knew about the school, I didn't, I hadn't got immersed into it because we were military brats and all that stuff, but very non-traditional. I didn't have this deep feeling like I got to go to this HBCU because I wanted to go where my money was going. But in retrospect, it's one of the best accidents that ever happened.
Awesome. Kristen?
So I had actually not considered HBCUs when I was in high school. I didn't know a lot about them, I will say that. And then I was in a youth leadership organization sponsored by the Women of Alpha Kappa Alpha. I was an AK-18, and I was on the step team. And the young lady who led it went to FAM, and she was super dope. And then I test really well, so I got invited to this thing that all kids who test really well went to, and Dr. Frederick Humphreys was there.
Uh-oh.
You know anything about Dr. Frederick? Dr. Frederick Humphreys could convince you to do a lot of things. And he gave me a scholarship on the spot. He was like, come to FAMU, listen, send in your application, you've already got your scholarship. And I was like, all right, I'm not gonna argue with that. And I told my mom, I was like, Mommy, I'm going to FAMU. She's like, what's a FAMU? But she dropped me off, and the rest is history.
Awesome. Colette, same question.
My route was a little different. I was exposed to FAMU through the Florida Classic, having grown up in Tampa. So I knew who they were. I certainly was aware of the band, but I was very lucky in high school because I'm pre-Different World. I mean, Different World came out when I was in college.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful teacher in high school, a world history teacher at East Bay High School named Patrice Green. And Miss Green took my best friend and I to homecoming our junior year. Mm-hmm. And that's when you could let your kids go away with their teachers. Yeah. So she took us to FAMU, and I fell in love with it. I felt comfortable, and I could see myself there. Yeah. And it was just that feeling of everything that you get at HBCU. It's one of those things, it's hard to know what it is until you feel it, but I felt it. And so then when I came back home in my senior year and I started applying to schools, I just really knew I was going to go to FAMU. My parents weren't so happy with it at first because they wanted me to stay home, of course. And I grew up, like I said, in a very rural area. I grew up in Waimama. So my parents were, strict parents. And it was like, no, you're going to stay home. We'll buy you a car. You can go to college. But in the back of my mind, I knew if I went to FAMU, eventually I could leave home and I would get a car, which I did. So that's how I ended up at FAM. It just felt right. And thanks to Patrice Green, my world history teacher, for exposing me to the campus.
So just for the benefit of our listeners, and we do have listeners really from all over the country, and you just mentioned Tampa, obviously, which people know, and then you mentioned you grew up in Waimama. So Waimama, when she says rural, she's talking about rural. Waimama, probably back when we grew up, was probably fields and orange groves primarily. I grew up in the Notisassa, which is on the other end of the Hillsborough County. Again, fields and orange groves. So rural, and why that is significant, I think, is because for some kids who grow up in more of a kind of a rural environment, being around people who embrace them and who look like them, et cetera, is very important. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, because that was a big part of why some of us felt comfortable at HBC.
And it's so interesting in terms, that's really good to hear everybody's the reasons why. I will share that I initially was not HBCU driven. My parents didn't go to HBCUs. My family members went to HBCUs. I have a long list of family members who went to A&M. But because our band director was in 100 and you were immersed in my high school in A&M, I was like, I'm not interested in going to FAMU and seeing my friends from high school. I want to experience something else. And then I remember going to, kind of like you, Kristen, going on campus, meeting Sybil Mobley. Had a meeting with Sybil Mobley, and that was it. I mean, it was the Dean of the School of Business and Industry, for those who don't know. She's the late Dean Sybil Mobley. Sat down in her office, had a conversation with her and my mom. You saw all of these construction hats of all these companies of the Fortune 500 or 100 companies, boards that she sat on. And she made the case for why me going to A&M was better than me going to George Washington University, which was my second option. So that was it for me. But I think one of the things that I've heard from parents who are not as familiar with HBCUs, and my parents were, my mom is from Memphis, my dad is from Pensacola, so they're familiar, was this notion that HBCUs are party schools and that you're going to get up there, you're going to party. The academic rigor is not on the same level as a white institution. I know that we all know that that's not accurate. But when have you in your professional careers you've matriculated, have you gotten that type of pushback when people find out that you're an HBCU graduate, when they're doing the comparisons with people that graduated from predominantly white institutions about the academic rigor and devaluing your degree and your education?
And Tanya, I'd be curious to get your perspective since you went to school in Atlanta. Oh my gosh, how do you stay focused in the A, going to college?
Right. Well, I did go to the #1 HBCU, just to put that out there. So no, but I understand exactly what you're saying. And so Spelman hasn't really been seen as a party school. However, a lot of people question whether or not the academic rigor is comparable to predominantly white institutions. And so that is one of those things I know you all have heard. It's not a realistic situation and you're not going to have the same opportunities. I've heard it over and over. But one of the things that has often been my response, I got it from one of my Spelman sisters who's now a judge in Atlanta. And she said, Spelman is like a tailor-made suit. And so you can buy a nice suit from Nordstrom's, you can buy a nice suit from Saks Fifth Avenue, but a tailor-made suit is made for you and your specifics in every way. And that was what Spelman was. It was tailor-made for me to walk out and be dynamic. Now, one of the things that I say when I go out talking to people is when people want just numbers, they may go to any school, but when they want the top of the top, the best of the best, they're coming to, especially when they're looking for you, for Black women or for people of color, they're coming here and they're looking for you. And the education, if you go through education, K through 12, it was never designed to educate people of color. HBCUs in America are the only schools that were designed specifically to educate people of color. So why would you not want that? You walk out so much more stronger, more celebrated, and with more confidence to go out and live, as they say, in the real world, because you've been built to do that. So that's my comeback.
Awesome. Yeah, Colette, same question.
You know, it was interesting because I got it in high school. And again, growing up, I graduated in the early 80s. So even my classmates, I remember when I announced that I was going to FAMU, and I was the only one in my class, in my graduating class that went to FAMU. The other ones went to PWIs. And I remember my close friends saying, oh, you know, you won't get a job, you know, the education, the this, that, and the other. And interestingly, I graduated when they graduated. You know, I've had my career has been very successful along the way. And I've never felt inferior to anyone. In fact, I feel it's interesting because I have so much pride that I got from sitting in those classrooms. I just mentioned this on one of my alumni pages for FAMU, that we talked about the professors, Dr. Theodore Hemingway, you know, Attorney Williams, those professors in our classrooms, and this is typical of any HBCU, where the professors care about your total person, right? And you walk away thinking, I can do anything. I can be anything, because they tell you that and you believe it. And I got my graduate degree at a PWI, the University of South Florida. And I remember sitting in the classroom with my classmates and thinking, this is what y'all did for 4 years? Because this is nothing. You know, I learned this junior year at FAMU. And I'm going to make one more point. Because my degree was in journalism, we were required to do an internship at the Tallahassee Democrat. My sequence or my area of concentration was public relations, but we were required, if you graduate from journalism, everybody had to do an internship at the daily newspaper, regardless if you were magazine, broadcast, print, didn't matter. You were required to graduate. And I kicked, screamed, and hollered, and I didn't understand why I had to do it as a public relations major. But when I got my first job, which was at the University of South Florida in media relations, I looked around the room and I started asking questions. I was the only one who had worked at a daily newspaper. So I was over prepared for the same job that my cohorts had. I had that same job and I was better prepared than they were. So anyway, that was my experience.
That's good. DeMarc, I want you to give some perspective from the male point of view. Tell us about when you set foot on a campus at a historically Black university and look to the left and then look to the right and then look back to the left and look back to the right.
So you looked around, turned around. Well, for that particular moment, that was a good moment for me. I do remember, and I have no shame about that. I remember just being impressed and overwhelmed and fully realizing how amazingly beautiful Black women are in all these shades and varieties. But as a young dude, I'm like, this is amazing, and everybody should have told me this years ago, and I would have never done anything different. That said, you know, I do think this is important, and I don't want to bring this all heavy, but the context of the question to me is in many respects reflective of how people like to minimize Blackness. You know, to suggest to us and to talk to us continually, I'm talking about from the country at large, our schools are party schools, would be to assume that you have no idea what PWIs are like.
Right.
Their schools are flat foot, unfiltered debauchery. I mean, it's not even close. Like what we call partying and what they call partying are not even the same. When we say we kick it and when they say they kick it, they're like, we got drunk and 15 of us were knocked out in a farm. So we just crazy stories. We're like, I had, you know, some beer with my frat brother. I mean, it's just not the same thing. And I think that's a thing. I think when you look at the academic, you know, Alabama State, I have no problems with it. We're open enrollment school, you know, so people really like to, you know, talk about our academic standards. And, you know, is it up to par? But for me, as someone who went to that school, and I had good test scores for whatever it's worth, I think it's important when you talk about Black, you know, I think it was time to talk about, you know, educating Black kids. When you're from Alabama, if you don't have open enrollment, you can be a 3.5 student coming out of a high school in Alabama, and you might not make the cut because your high school is so bad. It has nothing to do with you. has nothing to do with you. So if you don't create these opportunities, that's why so many people come to state that weren't top-notch students, and they've done incredibly well for themselves because of that opportunity that the school has opened up in reflection of that. And that doesn't, to me, I'm big on, it doesn't really matter what you bring in. It matters what you put out, right? And I think that to a large degree, our academic standards, I think that most HBCUs have the same story because people care about you, and because it is um, reflecting that understanding of what we're about to face in the world, regardless of major. People teach you that way, and so I think most of us walk out incredibly prepared. I've often and still continue to be impressed with the people that were in my cohort, the people in our class. I'm impressed with our alum. I'm impressed with us when I see us in professional spaces. And it's not just ASU. It's almost every HBCU grads. We kind of all know when we're in a room, you're in a professional setting, and somebody else HBCU, like, I know they about it. They about this life. You just know that they're prepared because you know the HBCUs do that. So I think that the question itself is probably more reflective of how people like to minimize Black experiences and make us think that the white man's ice is colder and that there's something magical and special, or that the things that we do that are normal, vis-a-vis the party and vis-a-vis liking to see, there's nothing wrong with being 18 and liking. Who doesn't like to date at 18? That's
Yeah.
part of what you're supposed. Part of college is learning how to be yourself, find your boundaries, and so on. That's what you're supposed to do. And I don't know any white person that has not done that, right? So why somehow when we have these same experiences and when we have similar experiences, they like to take our similar experiences and make us feel negative about them, and that just burns me up on the inside. So I didn't mean to be
No,
super
that's good. Listen, that's good. Christy,
super preachy about it, but
Yeah, Kristen, take us to break with your perspective.
Will do. So a couple things. People don't try me like that because my mouth has always been real, real sharp. And so, and I will also say this: my environments were stellar. I was track gifted early on, and I was always surrounded by Black people. Right? I was very confused by other people's experiences and gifted. Like we were one of four. I was like, I was one of all. Like I was consistently surrounded by high achieving Black people, high achieving Black teachers, by white teachers and Asian and teachers from all cultural backgrounds who affirmed the excellence of Blackness. And I didn't know that wasn't normal. Sorry, guys. One time for Detroit public schools and my experience in it. And so there was no minimizing that choice. FAMU, Howard, Clark Atlanta, Spelman. These were all schools where you have all your college pennants on the wall in the counselor's office. These schools were represented hardcore, and we were pushed in these directions. When colleges came to our high school to recruit students, we had from the University of Michigan on through, right? And so from that perspective, I never had pushback on that decision. It wasn't a question of like, why would you do that? It's a question of go where you want to be, go where you want to affirm. And then on the back end of that, I will say that what comes out of HBCUs, by and large, you always get those people who trickle through. We're gonna keep praying for them. But by and large, as my friend DeMarc here said, excellence is what comes out of these schools. And one of the things I really, really love in thinking about this and thinking about the people that I know, one of my dear friends, Talitha, my sister, right, who I met at FAMU, says you don't train warriors on the battlefield. So why am I going to constantly put you in environments where you've got to waste energy affirming you belong there as if you are not good enough, when I can put you in a place that's going to say you are good because you are here.
Yeah.
Right? There's no question of you made it in this door, and that confidence that you get, that wit that you get, your ability to network, to move and groove, make it shake, all of those things that you learn in these HBCU experiences, you can put me anywhere. I've been in the room with billionaires. Right? I've been in the room with billionaires and good morning, how are you? I can hold court with anybody. I can be comfortable with anybody. And some of that is based on what I learned at Florida A&M University. It's not a question of if I'm good enough. I actually had somebody ask me once, like, how did you get in here? Excuse me? And I said, through the door, just like you. You should ask yourself how you got in here with me. Because what I had to get in here, just based on the society that we live in, let's be very real on who's prepared to be in this room.
And there's some science to that too. I mean, there's a website called Affordable Colleges Online. .org, and they did a study recently. As a matter of fact, they quoted from a study that Purdue University did in conjunction with Gallup, where they actually surveyed Black students who had gone to HBCUs and those who had gone to PWIs, and over half of the students that they talked to said that they honestly felt like their HBCU, prepared them for life after graduation, as compared to about less than a third of their counterparts that did not attend HBCUs. So I think somebody mentioned earlier, like, do we hate on people who choose not to go to HBCUs? Well, we don't hate on you, but there's evidence and there's kind of science to what we do at HBCUs to prepare kids for life. That's really kind of been proven, and there's a host of
and I think one of the things that I was always taught, and I'm pretty sure all of you all probably had this as well, is that being Black in this country, you have to be 10 times better than just an average white person. And I think what HBCUs and the professors that are on HBCU campus, they take that to heart, which is why they drill into us that mindset that, number one, you can achieve anything you want to do, but you're not going to have behind do stuff. You're not going to have behind do stuff. You're not going to hand in work that is below what I know you're capable of, right? Where we see the promise in you. And so, DeMarc, when you were talking about open enrollment, I think a lot of people don't understand the history of HBCUs, and it really is extending educational opportunities for groups of people, because most HBCUs were created right on the other end of slavery, the end of abolition of slavery, and during Reconstruction. And so you're giving our educational opportunities for people who did not have the ability to go to the Harvards, the Yales, the Princetons, the other white institutions. HBCUs were the haven where professors said, we want you to achieve. We know, regardless of your background, that you have the ability to achieve, and we're going to give you the tools to achieve. And so, to you all's point, the product of that is evident in you all and all HBCU graduates, because we are capable of talking to anybody, not being intimidated by your status or who you are, because we're built for that. We're built for that.
Yeah, and we may be able to work through our break. We're waiting to hear from our producer, but I like the anecdote that you provided from, like, the instructors had expectations of you. I actually had friends, you talk about, being a party school or whatever. I actually had friends who helped check me in my friend circle, because they knew I was falling behind. And so they were like, dude, what are you doing? Like, we're here on a mission. We're here for a mission. So look, when we come back out of our break, we want to get into homecoming traditions. We want to understand a little bit more about Spelman, obviously, and ASU. And we're going to chat about that, but we're going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll be back on the other side. Thanks, guys.
For a little bit of smooth mixed with a lot of soul. So when you're a player, you're listening to Touch Radio. All right, let's go. Sports know how to keep kids safe. Do you? But oh my gosh, you don't know. I know. You don't. Oh man, you laugh when you're at comfort. No. Making sure your child is in the right car seat is one of the steps to safer travel. I will rock it. You will rock it. To know for sure that your child is in the right car seat for their age and size, visit safercar.gov/the right seat. Cool. Very cool. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's important to plan ahead for emergencies, like the storm. When it kicked in, we had a plan. We were able to get in touch with each other in no time. How to find each other. The whole experience was the most frightening 10 hours of my life. If there's one piece of advice I'd offer other moms out there, it's to stay calm and stick to the plan.
Some parents plan ahead, some don't. Make sure you know where to find your family in an emergency. Start your plan at ready.gov. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
By now, we're all aware of the dangers of COVID-19. Like others with existing health issues, cancer patients are at a high risk due to their compromised condition. If you are newly diagnosed with cancer, your care likely can't wait. Moffitt Cancer Center is the best place for your cancer concerns and to provide guidance to help you plan your next steps. We're here for you. Call 1-888-456-2787
Wherever we go.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Soul Purpose Show. We are in the month of October, and we are talking about historically Black colleges and universities. We've actually issued a challenge to other HBCUs and our own HBCU, our beloved FAMU, for the alumni to actually give serious consideration to reaching back and supporting financially. We have an outstanding panel of guests today, not just from FAMU, but also representing Spelman and Alabama State. We'd like to take this opportunity to learn a little bit more about homecoming traditions, right? So we can talk forever about FAMU and homecoming, our homecoming traditions, but I'm a little curious to hear, we don't get a chance to hear much about like what happens at homecoming in Spelman. Is it Spelman and Morehouse? Is it just Spelman?
Right, I heard Spell House.
Spell House, like, yeah. So give us some insight as to why you assume that your homecoming would be better than FAMU.
Because it is. No, but honestly, I know, and I won't go there because I mean, every homecoming from FAMU to North Carolina A&T, like they all have something that makes them unique. And they're just amazing because I've had a chance to go to other ones, but of course I'm biased to Spell House. So our Spell House homecoming is, I mean, it is one for the books, and I'm sure you all can relate. You see thousands, if not multi-thousands and maybe even millions of Black people, people of color in one place celebrating all together. So one of our big things is tailgating, right? Unlike FAMU, our football team
has struggled. ...
I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm just gonna leave it there.
Has struggled a little.
Right. So for us, it was never, and similar to, because I've been to some FAMU games, you know, HBCUs, you go for the halftime show. But a big part of that was tailgating. And so we would come out there, we would have just hours and hours of just seeing people, and people don't understand. I think we're a little bougie. Yeah, I put it out there in our Spell House homecoming. I know, but it's classy fun because we're out there, the tailgating, they have like full bars in a tent. Who cares? It's like, who can dress it up the best? It is fantastic. A lot of different people put on different parties, and it's like a few parties at least for your classes or for your class range that you go to. So Friday night, you know what party you're going to. Saturday night, you know what you're doing, and then you're recovering on Sunday so that you can fly back and act like you're normal at work. Take off Monday.
Yeah.
But that's really it. I mean, we have tents. And one of the things that I really like, which you don't see often, and most people don't know, but Bennett College, which is also an all-female HBCU, are actually the true sisters of Morehouse. And so, yes, and it's funny because all of the women, my mom's generation went to Bennett, and 4 of us from my generation went to Spelman. So that's a fun banter. And they come out, but for homecoming, Bennett has their tent, Spelman's there, Morehouse is there, and it's just this family reunion. If that's the best way to can it, you're out there, you're dancing, you have these sponsors. Some things are appropriate to take your children to, not all, but some things are appropriate to bring them out for. I bring my children just about every year. I wasn't planning on bringing them this year, but COVID happened. Yeah. So it's a great time, and the traditions are awesome.
So DeMarc, tell us about, we know about FAMU. We'll get to Colette and Kristen to tell us about their, their love for FAMU homecoming. But DeMarc, tell us about the ASU homecoming experience.
Our homecoming has always been unique, right? Because I would be remiss. I always feel like we talk about homecoming, talk about big games. But Bama State has a bunch of big games because we got these classics. So we got like Magic City Classic, which is a whole beast into itself. That said,
Magic City Classic. For those people who don't know what Magic City Classic is,
Magic City is where we play Alabama A&M. We both descended in Birmingham, and so on and so forth. I'm not gonna do this all day. Now we got Labor Day, but anyway. But our homecoming was always kind of unique because our homecoming at Bama State was Turkey Day Classic. Which has been It was really fun, but it's different, right? Because it's not like a lot of schools where your homecoming is like the biggest one, because our biggest event was Magic City.
Mm,
Most because as time has progressed, yeah, back in the day, everybody who went to I said everybody who went to Alabama State was from Montgomery, and of course, as the school got bigger, that just wasn't going to be realistic. I mean, usually you pull people who on Thanksgiving, you can go see your mama, right?
right.
And some people don't. If you're from Montgomery, we play Tuskegee, which is right down the street from us, and it was this long, it was this long rivalry, the parades, and with them both being in the same place. Montgomery lit up like a Christmas tree because so many people are in the area. You have the parade, of course. I think everybody has the tailgates, so on and so forth. And so it was just an amazing experience. It was particularly when we still played Tuskegee. That's kind of changed in the last couple of years, which is not necessarily bad. Life is about change, so I'm not going to mention that moment. But particularly when it was those two schools all the time, you had these two big schools with these two different kind of histories, and I think time was like, oh yeah, Bama State would never be called bougie. I'll say that. So you don't get that, but you get a little bit of that from Tuskegee, not in a bad way. But one's a public school, one's a private school, so on and so forth. But it was just fun, and like you said, just seeing the tailgate and the history. You start seeing those people who have the privilege of that intergenerational. So you see the folks out there with their grandmom and the dog, or the grandfather and the father and the son and the little people, and they got the. It was just amazing. And I've got a chance to experience, from every level. When I was in school, I was in campus politics. I would be remiss. I mean, if you remember the Beta Zeta chapter, Kappa Alpha Psi, like I am, it has a whole nother thing because the brushes show out, and that's where you're Greek. I want to say this the right way. I know it's being recorded, but if you're Greek, um, to a large degree, that's where you make sure you get your bona fides, right? So people, so when you're walking around with people like trying to understand how much history that you have learned, it's a good place to communicate that. It's a good place to communicate that. Um, so
I get it. We get it.
This look
no, but it's amazing. I know everybody has their stories, but Turkey Day specifically, always had that history, and it's been fun watching it try to change itself, because I think you had said earlier, life's about change, and
Yeah.
when Tuskegee pulled out, we try to get them on the schedule when we can, but trying to keep that tradition going and then balance with our other things. It's been fun watching the school kind of keep that tradition going with still, seeing the world kind of move and change. So it's been dope.
So Colette and Kristen, we are Rattlers, so we understand. We believe now North Carolina A&T, and I'm just going to throw the gauntlet out there, and I don't care if A&T folks are watching. North Carolina A&T likes to label itself the greatest homecoming on earth.
What?
Right. I think Rattlers on the highest of 7 hills in Tallahassee, Florida, would call foul on that. That's what y'all say. What we're here to share with you is that the greatest homecoming in the universe, period, is at Florida A&M University. Colette and Kristen, can I get an amen?
Yes, sister.
I feel like you set that up.
Listen, because A&T folks come on, we got the greatest homecoming on earth, and the Rattlers are like, you clearly have never been to Tallahassee during homecoming. There's no way you can say that and have gone to Tallahassee.
Unless the 100 shows up for y'all.
Right. So Colette, I want to go to you, and then I'll go to Kristen about just, I've boosted it up, but just your experience. I mean, homecoming is not happening this year. I am, having a fear of missing out because I was anticipating going to homecoming. Just kind of give us, give our audience kind of your view on why homecoming is so important and the homecoming experience and from your perspective on A&M's campus.
So it's interesting this year. I was sharing this with my freshman friends from FAMU. It's about 7 or 8 of us, and we get together every year in Tallahassee. We try our best to get everybody together. And we have a group chat that we were talking in recently. And I was telling them, I said, I never realized that mentally I anticipated homecoming around this time of year. Right. So you walk into a store and you catch an orange blouse or orange dress. You're like, oh, I got to get it for homecoming. Oh, I got to get. And I found myself doing that this year and having to tell myself there is no homecoming because my brain just knew it was homecoming time. So that was really interesting to discover that. So as I said, from 1983, which was my freshman year at FAMU, from my time in McGuinn, I formed this group of ladies and a couple guys from our freshman brothers that we get together, and it becomes our family reunion every year. It has been that way. I mean, that's the beauty of a HBCU. It is our homecoming, but it's our family reunion. 2019 was very special for me. My daughter's a freshman at sophomore now at FAMU. It was her freshman year, her very first homecoming as a student at FAMU. And I got to experience it with her. And remember, I told you the reason that I was introduced to FAMU was because of a homecoming. So homecoming has always had a special place in my heart. But just experiencing it with my daughter last year was just magnificent, because I saw them, where we're getting to the legacy and the true legacy of this experience, and to see her tailgating with me, and we're going from here to there, we're going to the vendors together. There was just my heart was just overjoyed, because now my baby girl is going through what I went through, and prayerfully will have the same memories that I had. So it is certainly a FAMU lead when we get together.
Absolutely. Kristen?
Oh, don't judge me. I'm an outlier here, okay? Don't worry, it's not what you think. It's fine. I don't like crowds for real.
Okay.
I'm like, wait, hold on. I don't like crowds for real. So homecoming, even as a student, I didn't participate in a lot of the stuff that makes homecoming because of anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay? However, last year, this is the power and beauty of social media, right? The way we kind of celebrate homecoming classes at FAMU, not kind of, is the year you came in, it's your freshman class, right? Because of a variety of programs, you can graduate whenever, but we came in together. So last year was class of 99's 20 years a Rattler reunion kind of situation, right? And I was not going to go because, again, crowds.
Yeah.
But social media, all the build up, my class was doing this giving fund. It was like a thing. So I was like, I'm going to homecoming. Pray. That thing is still gifting me.
Mm-hmm.
A year later, we're literally a year later from that experience. And it was one of the biggest blessings. And it was super significant, like I said, because last year was also the year I decided to finally graduate. So I was a student. Yes, but also a FAMU student in the month. So I got a new FAMU student ID while I was down there. And I was able to, I have a friend who's a professor there. And anytime I would go to Tallahassee, I would speak to her class. So I got to speak to the classes and interact with students, to share my experience, to share this story of coming back and finishing what I started. And the most significant thing is legacy, right? And not even necessarily family legacy, but the legacy of Rattlers who give back. Yeah. The legacy of Rattlers who create pathways and share wisdom. And this family experience is a real thing. And so there was a student in her class, I was speaking to her junior class, who came up to me at the end of class. She said, I don't think you remember me, but I met you my freshman year when you came to speak to the class. And she said, she did this whole thing. So had me in tears, had my makeup looking crazy. Because she talked about the impact of that legacy of Rattlers giving back, of loving our students, of creating space in all of our celebration and partying, because Kristen went to every single party, okay, great, had a great time. But in the middle of all of that, celebrating FAMU's birthday, speaking with those students, hearing the feedback of how us being willing to come back and to share and to love on and to mentor makes the difference in the legacy of FAMU.
Yeah.
My family, no other Hemingway may ever go to FAMU. However, my willingness and ability to speak into the lives of students who are students of my friends does.
Yeah.
So that's what homecoming, like that made my experience before everybody else even got into town.
Yeah.
Everybody else got into town. It was a good time. So I think that is what homecoming means to me at this point. Is this legacy of seeing what you can become.
Yeah. And speaking of legacy and the giving, I just want to shout out the freshman class of 1999, because to Kristen's point, every year the freshman class was celebrating, whether it's 10, 15, 20, 25, they have tried to raise money for the institution. And freshman class of 1999 knocked it out the box. They raised $200,000 plus.
I was saying over.
I apologize. Over $200,000 to give back to university. And so you're talking about legacy. The number of students on campus that that's going to impact is huge. And so kudos to you, Kristen, and your class for, I mean, our class raised $55,000, but y'all blew that thing out the park. And so now other classes are like, well, shoot, we can't let them outdo us. So this is healthy competition, all for the benefit of our HBCU. So I just wanted to do a plug for that.
Yeah, and that's a good segue too to you know, you can see, you can probably feel if you're watching this, just the love that we have for our school, and you know, we're parents and we have influence, and we're probably involved in other community outlets as well. So we have influence over young people, and so it puts us in a position where we have to start advising young people as to what path they should take. And it's easy to say, well, you know, I went to FAMU, so obviously you got to go to FAMU. But this is it's a whole new world now, right? Yeah. So there's all of these options and these choices out here. So I'm interested in getting some perspective from you guys on, like, under what circumstances do you advise a kid to say, well, if given a choice between an HBCU and maybe this opportunity, whether you're a D1 athlete or whether you're a top rated athlete, or you're a student who could get into MIT and study engineering, a National Merit Scholar, whatever, under what circumstances do you say, all right, well, you get a pass because of this other opportunity to go into it? So I know, DeMarc, I know you had some perspective on that when we were talking earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, in terms of when you would give that advice, right? You know, we all love our schools. I think that's like you said, that's self-evident. But ultimately, particularly when you're talking to young kids, because some of this stuff is, I mean, you love the school, some of it is banter. At the end of the day, real life is real life, right? And you do have to make sure that you're balancing every opportunity that's in front of you. That's it. I think on a normal day, on a normal advisement, I would probably advise a student to go to an HBC myself. But if something unique crafted itself up, there was a very specific pathway, if you were very clear about what you wanted to do, and there was just a laser beam focus. Again, if you wanted to get to, if you were, you know, blue chip athlete, and you know that you could start at UA, everybody knows if you're gonna get on the field at UA, then you know that everybody's gonna watch you on TV every Saturday. These are just things you know. And if you know you're gonna play, I get that. If you don't know you're gonna play, you know, maybe that's something to pull back, and of course, understanding that the good thing about the world today, and particularly, like I said, everything evolves with kids, making sure they understand that social media has allowed us to brand ourselves a little bit better, right? And so we really have had a chance to break out of some of the systemic things that kind of kept or made the allure to other places. You know, you can build your own brand. You can make sure people know who you are. You can connect on things that maybe and get exposed to things that make you now, even at a little bitty school or not as known school or whatever it may be, you can get seen and known now, because social media is a really amazing equalizer. And so, like I said, I personally, I would strongly advise most kids to look at that option strongly. That said, I don't believe in dogmatic ideas. At the end of the day, as much as I love HBCUs, if it comes up in your life and it makes sense for you, you still got to make what makes sense for you. But I would say, you know, please do that with balancing out, and don't minimize, kind of from our conversation earlier. Just don't minimize that HBCU experience because what people are telling you. Make sure that you think about it and weigh out, what do I really want to do, and can I get that? Another thing I say with the kid, don't assume what people tell you is true. So you say, well, I want to be a D1 athlete. You know, shout out to Alabama State. We just got our first #1 draft pick in the first round, right? In Titus Howard, coming from Bama State. You know, we've had Jafarius Jackson, who rest in peace, he won a Super Bowl. We've got the Tangi Millers, and we've got so many people who've done something. So don't just assume, you know, if you want to be in there, I'm going to go to our notable alums, but if you don't assume that you can't be that if you go to the HBC of your choice, because if you talk to the people who go to those schools and say, well, hey, you know, I mean, I will go to this school, but I want to be a doctor. Oh, my classmate's a doctor, and they are up there rocking at Johns Hopkins. They're killing the game, right? And so don't assume that everybody who's, you know, doing well in the space that you want to be well came from these Ivy League schools or came from these quote unquote, you know, places of magic that you don't think come from from the HBCU side, because I do think that HBCUs in every profession, we shine hard. And so I think it's important, if you want to do something, make sure that a school that you like or the schools that you like, ask them, find the Tanyas, find the Kristens, find the Monicas, find the Keiths, because they do big things.
Yeah.
And so, oh, wait, I'm sorry, find the Colettes. I don't want to shout out everybody on the panel. But no, but just find them and make sure that they are, that you know that you're making the right decision for you.
Yeah. Colette, same question.
I think that we have to be realistic that an HBCU just really isn't for everybody. There's a certain personality, there's a certain person who's going to do well in that environment. And case in point, I know a young lady now who's a senior this year, and the conversation has been to steer her toward FAMU. In fact, I actually took her up there for a visit when I went to go visit my daughter. But I realized that her personality is just not going to do well there, right? It's just not for her. And so once you recognize that, we're okay with that. It's just not going to be for her for whatever reason. I have 3 kids. My oldest son graduated from Howard, who literally just came in the room and said, y'all gonna talk about homecoming and not talk about Howard? Okay. So literally just came in and said that. Who graduated from Howard, and my middle son graduated from a PWI, went to University of Cincinnati on a full ride football scholarship. And then as I mentioned, my daughter is a sophomore now at FAMU. But I also realized that we had to take each child individually. So what we've done in our household is certainly expose them to HBCUs. I mean, we did campus tours at Spelman and, all the HBCUs within Florida. But Howard, we did the tours there. So we're always exposing them to that. So when it comes time to make a decision, we knew that was going to be part of their decision. And even my daughter was like, I'm going to an HBCU from the beginning. My oldest son was the same way. It was, I want to go to this school. I want to go to Howard. He was bent on Howard. So I just think that we need to, and to the earlier point is, for me, it's making sure that all things are equal. If you're going to look at a PWI for the same reasons that you look at that school, I want you to look at an HBCU. Right. So just as I said, it's not for everybody. I can't tell you the number of friends that I have currently who graduated from PWIs who have told me, I wish I went to an HBCU. I wish I got my undergrad at an HBCU and then my master's or my PhD at a PWI. So, my point is, I think you should just look at the individual, what works well for him or her, which environment will they thrive in, and then make sure, again, that HBCUs become a viable option for them. Let them understand that, again, all things equal, HBCU should be in the consideration.
So we're closing out, but I wanted to get Tanya and Kristen in here. Just one question I have is, in one word, describe your experience at the HBCU, at an HBCU. One word. I know it's hard. One word.
Lawyers can't just say one word. Indescribable.
Kristen.
That's a good word.
Life altering.
I'm gonna bring Colette and DeMarc in. Colette, one word. Your HBCU experience.
Pride.
DeMarc.
Oh man. Enthralling.
I probably should have given that to y'all beforehand to prepare. So.
Well, I thought I was off the hook. I was sitting there thinking, I'm glad she didn't ask me that. So I let my whole brain got off that question. I'm like, whoa, she gave that to the right 2 people.
Giving us something to think about. Listen, guys, we cannot thank y'all enough for taking some time out to share with us your HBCU experience. Best of luck to you in your private endeavors as well. Make sure we get that information so we can put it on our page to share with our viewers. And folks, that's our time. We want you to be safe, take care.
There will be no Soul Purpose Lounge today, but we will see you all next week, same time, same location.
Get back to your school.
Absolutely. Y'all be blessed. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.